This video is all about making the patchwork that is in the butterfly fields number 5 butterfly called Ohio Star. So let's get busy making the patchwork for this really fun block. Here is the Ohio Star butterfly. This is number 5 butterfly in our butterfly fields pattern. And this video, we will go over how to make the patchwork that fits into the Ohio Star butterfly. I have pre-cut some fabric here. I need 4 of the salmon color. And then 2 of the maroon, 2 of the gold, and then these are 2-inch pieces that we will use when we sew the patchwork together. Our first step is to make half square triangles out of these. We're going to eventually make quarter square triangles, but let's start with half square triangles. So we match these up, right sides together. These instructions are on page 33 in your book. So again, right sides together. There are multiple ways to make half square triangles. I like to use diagonal seam tape, but for demonstration, I'm going to show you the basic method here. So there is a diagonal line here, and then we sew 1/4 inch on each side of that line, and then we cut it apart on the line, and then that gives us 2 half square triangles. So I'm doing that with this top set, and then again with the gold and salmon color. Here I have the maroon and salmon colored sewn together, and you can see I have a line sewn on each side of the diagonal, a seam, and then again with the yellow and coral. So now we will be cutting these apart. So cut from point to point. And for next step, we are going to press this seam open here. So let's go. I'll go press seams open and I'll be right back. All right, this gives me 4 like this. And for the other way, of the other colorway. All right, so in our book, there's a solid line. So we did these first 2. Now we're going to make quarter square triangles. So we're actually combining this with this. And just as we've done before, we actually want to put the diagonal seam on top of each other. But you don't want this coral to be on top of the coral. You actually want it opposite. And then this time we are sewing perpendicular to our diagonal seam last time. So I'm drawing a diagonal line from point to point here. And again, I give myself a little check. All right, check. Am I getting that look? Yes. I want the coral and the coral opposite each other, and then a maroon and a yellow. And then align your center seam. and then we'll sew on each side of that. So we're doing that with all of these. Here are all my blocks. I have 8 blocks, exactly the same. I cut them in half and I press the seam open. So next step is to square each of them to 2 inches. I am using my Sew Square 4, and I'm just putting the 1, 1 on the very center, and then lining up the seams on those 2-inch marks. Trim 2 sides, rotate it, and now put trimmed edges on the 2s and trim off whatever's left. So this needs to be done to all 8 of these. Here they are all squared up. And now we are ready to sew our patchwork together. So we're looking here, we're making 2 blocks exactly the same. So I have my 2 center squares, and then for this, the yellow is framing the center square. And I think the Ohio Star is one of my favorite traditional patchwork blocks. I think it's very interesting. There's a lot of variations with color placement. And then you have 8 of the 2-inch maroon. And what I like about this is this floats the patchwork in the butterfly, because the butterfly main color is this maroon. So we tried to think of that when we were creating these, to float that patchwork. And of course you can change the colors if you want to. All right, so now I'll sew these together. I'll sew into rows first. And then I will press the seams to the side, opposite directions for each row, and then sew your rows together and press that seam open. For sewing the patchwork together, I thought I would give you a detailed explanation again. I pick up the first 2 in that first row, put the middle one on, sew the 1/4 inch. I do not cut the threads right here. Pick up the next one. This is an easy method for doing a smaller block. Again, don't cut your threads yet. Notice no pins. Okay, now I cut my thread. Now I open it up, and now I will add that 3rd piece in that top row. And again, the middle row, add that 3rd piece. The only thing you have to remember is to have the yellow touching the center. We're not cutting our threads. And then the last one. Okay, now I have 3 rows. And now I'm flipping this right column. Now it's a column because it's up and down. over. And notice I haven't pressed. I am managing it without pressing yet. And here I am laying the seams opposite each other so that they will nest. And then turn it, do the other column. This lets me work without any pins and still gets my corners to line up. The more you do it, the more you'll get used to it in your head. It makes, I think it's an easy way. And then the last step is I want to trim these little loops where I didn't cut my threads so that I can press that seam open. Now I will press that last seam I made open. Here are my 2 patchwork blocks, and you can see I pressed the last set of seams open. I made 2 exactly the same, and now I'm ready to make the Ohio Star butterfly block.